everybody, it's Carter, and welcome to this episode of Making It Up, the conversation series between writers. And once in a while, I get to talk to somebody from another country, and that's always fun because the perspective is so different, and the publishing process is different, and kind of just their publishing journey is something that's maybe not quite totally relatable to me because just the system's different over there. So it's always fun to compare notes. And so today was one of those occurrences. I had the great fortune of talking to Michael Katz Krefeld, who is a Danish author, an international best-selling author who comes from Denmark, and he's been writing crime fiction for quite some time. He won the Crime Book Festival's Audience Award in 2018 and the Martha Award in 2016. And he really started out his writing career making short films. He had this massive love of the cinema, and as you'll hear in the episode, he kind of grew up on American films at drive-in movies in Denmark, and you know, he thought maybe he was going to be a filmmaker. He thought maybe he was going to be a visual artist, and he did make some short films and work with other screenwriters, and he got the knack for writing there, especially obviously the knack for dialogue, and he tried to give his hand at writing long-form fiction, writing novels. And, you know, his path to success was very rapid, and I think that's obviously a huge attribution to his talent, but his foray into the publishing industry in Denmark was pretty easy. And he was also kind of hitting that first wave of popularity in Scandinavian crime fiction. So he was able to kind of really quickly start making a living being a writer, which is not my experience and not the experience of a lot of different writers. So he was fascinating to talk to. He had a lot of good insights, and it was just engaging to hear about how he went from screenwriting to novel writing, and what his views of long form fiction were and how they've changed over time. So it was a great conversation. He was sitting in the car on his iPhone the whole time. I was worried at first. I'm like, oh, this connections suck. It was great because he was having his race car. Yes, his race car was getting its numbers put on for a race he's about to participate in. So Michael's a bit of an adrenaline junkie as well. So this is a great episode. I think you're going to like it. This is my conversation, Michael Katz Krefeld. Oh, I got you in your car. You're escaping something.
Actually, we have a huge race this weekend with my historic race car.
Oh.
And the guys are putting numbers on the car because it's just been repainted. So they are putting numbers on it.
So where are you? Like where?
I'm at a garage here in just north of Copenhagen, where some of the guys are putting numbers on my old race car.
Okay.
I have a Lotus.
Yeah. You have an old Lotus race car, and then where does the race? How long does the race go? Where does it go to?
It's in Copenhagen. It's pretty cool, actually, and it's been for the last 20 years or so. And it's inside. It's on the street in Copenhagen. So we are making a racetrack there, and then we are competing there with all kind of race cars.
So they shut down all the streets.
Oh yeah, that's pretty. It's so cool. It's amazing. It's like a movie, actually.
Wow.
It's better than fiction. So,
but there's got to be crashes and stuff like that, or do you have to qualify to do this?
Oh yeah. I have a race license, and so it's it's really regulated. So yeah, but there's 40,000.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and this weekend. So
wow.
It's really amazing.
So a writer who's also an adrenaline junkie.
Oh yeah, I am. So
that's your personality.
I love the race cars, and I always love doing track cars and things like that. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you grew up with that passion.
Yeah, I did. I think I started actually with because as a rider you don't have any money, so I started doing mountain bike,
right,
and get my kicks there. And but I always enjoyed kind of I love the speed, but I also like the skills you have to obtain to do it. And I think that is something that is kind of similar to riding. You really have to it takes a long time to be good at it. So and
for sure. And I was going to say also, like the other thing I always say about riding, which I can see being very much true with racing, is it forces you absolutely to be in the moment. You can't think about anything else except for what's right in front of you. Otherwise it doesn't work.
No.
It's almost meditative, right? So I imagine when you're racing, you're in a meditative zone.
Yeah. It's actually there where I'm kind of relaxed in a hyper way. I mean, it's really in a zone. And everything comes together. You really you do a lot of preparation, and then you start racing there, and you really have to be on your game, so nothing happens to you or the guys you're competing with. And these cars are quite expensive, so you don't want to crash into somebody's dream. So it's we're racing hard but fair. So
but with 40,000 people watching, that's kind of scary too, because a car could go over a barrier or.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is they're putting concrete around, so no, I don't think there's happening anything to the spectators. But for us, we really have to, because there's nowhere you cannot escape these. So it's kind of arena or something like that. So
are you? And you're from Copenhagen?
Yeah. I was born here, so yeah.
Okay. And growing up, like what? I'm just curious to know kind of what the roots of your creativity were. Were you surrounded? You come from a creative family? What were your parents doing?
No. I mean, my father. Well, actually, my biological father left my mom before I was born, so I've never seen him. So he just ran off, and but he was a photographer and have some. I think he was a painter as well later in his life. I never saw him.
You never met him?
So never met him. I reached out for him, wrote him a letter, and unfortunately he was very sick at that moment, so he never got the letter, and he died.
Oh my goodness.
I had to read about it in the papers, so that was kind of surreal, really.
Yeah.
So I didn't, and I was brought up in the suburbs, and there was no creativity there. I'm afraid that was only me. So sometimes I felt like I was landing on the moon, actually. So I did a lot of time just drive like E.T. the small bikes there.
Yeah,
the small dirt bike. I had one like that, and I was just driving around and making up stories for myself.
Yeah.
I loved finding new unexplored areas in the suburbs, things like that. I think I used a lot of my childhood just entertaining myself, actually. So
interesting. Are you an only child?
I had a stepbrother, but we were very different. I mean, we didn't have that much in common, actually. So, but
interesting.
I mean, a few years.
And I think we're kind of similar. I think you're just a couple of years older than me, and I grew up in suburban Los Angeles, which was the same thing.
Yeah.
You didn't have phones, you didn't have internet, so you had your bikes. And you and some friends would just figure stuff out and make up games and do whatever you can to be. I mean, I wasn't really into reading or anything. That came later in my life. But there was that inherent storytelling with just figuring out how to pass the day, especially during the summers.
Yes, absolutely. And I had the same thing. Also, I love the library, and I was loving, just went up there listening to, you could sit down and listening to some music, the records and I wasn't interested in book. I was interested in comics.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So I was, I love that. I love to be in that, having a good time up there.
Yeah,
so,
totally. There was a phase I went through where I thought I wanted to be a comic strip artist. And because I thought that would be, and then I couldn't draw at all. But then you started getting cartoons like Dilbert, where it's like, okay, I guess you don't have to draw.
I wish I knew that. So
I know, because I was obsessed with like Calvin and Hobbes, for example. I thought that was the most neat comic ever, but the drawing was spectacular. So that quickly followed, and then you start to realize like there's no. And it's same with writing. It's like there's no future in this. Why would I ever do that? I've got to go to school and study something proper. So I went to hotel school and studied real estate finance. What about you?
I wasn't keen on schools, and then I was just there. I mean, physically, but not mentally. And I was supposed to go to college, but then my parents got divorced. My mother and stepfather. So I didn't, and then I was kind of left to myself, and I had some kind of weird teenage time where I didn't do much else than just hanging around and didn't really know what to do.
Right.
And everything, I loved reading books. I mean, I was reading more books than my friends who went to college and so because of interest. So I was reading all the classics and things like that, and I was just entertained by it. So. Yeah, and then I love to draw. Paint. I thought I was supposed to be a painter, but yeah.
So when did the writing begin? Like the real writing?
The real writing began when I was I thought I was going to be a painter, and I was collaborating with an older Mexican painter who lived in Copenhagen, and he showed me a lot of films. And then I started, the film language was really interesting to me. And I thought that is kind of cool. Maybe I should make movies. So I started making short films.
Okay.
And did that for quite some time. And I was trying to get into art schools, which I didn't. But, you also, in Denmark, you had to kind of make a film, show it to that would be the thing that is how you will get into the school.
Right.
And I didn't pass, unfortunately, but I did make a lot of films. So and with the films, I also was writing the script, the lines, and because when I was doing this, you couldn't just get a video camera. You have to apply to a facility or a school where you could borrow the equipment and things like that. It was quite a big process, compared to now where you can make a feature film with your telephone actually.
Right.
So I did a lot of writing actually, between these sets, and then eventually, I think like the Karate Kid, you don't know what kind of skills you have.
Right. You develop them so slowly over time. Yeah.
Yeah. And then in Denmark, there was and I know in the States, you have your in Denmark there was a period for and this is like 20 years ago, where we start looking at how to make long-running TV series. How do you produce that? And that was for the national television to do that. And they all got excited about, hey, we're going to make cop shows, we're going to make all kind of drama series, and they start producing it, and then they found out, damn, we need writers to do this because, there's a lot of writing going on here if you want to make a long-running series. And so they're kind of making these workshops, and I attended to some of them, and that's where I found out. I didn't, all the others they had went into film schools. I had none, no education, but have just made all these kind of show. I knew I knew how to write for, write fiction for films, and so I knew how to put up a scene. I knew how to write dialogue, which I didn't,
Which is, I think, is one of the hardest things to do. I think when you read a book where the dialogue is the weakest part, it's terrible, because the dialogue is what carries it through. And that's when you're watching a show or watching a movie.
Yeah.
It's so compelling if the dialogue is realistic and forceful and contains empathy. So I think that's one of the hardest things to do.
It is. But it's also, for me, it's kind of the thing I can do.
Yeah, me too. I'm the same.
Yeah. I mean, with the first book, because I went into a staff, I was a staff writer for almost 10 years, doing all kind of shows in Denmark. And beside that, I was kind of, I really wanted to write a book, but I didn't thought I could manage it. And then I, slowly over, I think 4 years, I got to the end that I actually had a book. I had a thriller here. And the funny thing is when I went to the publisher with it and with the editor, every time I thought this is how a book should be. That was the thing we were editing out, but all the dialogue, all the scenes, they were in. So that was,
Well, it's almost like I met one thriller writer who basically, he said he writes all the dialogue of the book first.
Yeah.
He just writes, that's the only thing. And then so it's like a screenplay, basically.
Yeah.
And then he goes in, he fills in all the gaps between the dialogue. And I'm like, that is fascinating.
Yeah, that is. Yeah.
But it's a good way of doing it if your mind, because the dialogue is what carries the book. And then and I've learned over time, because I started writing with no background in writing. And the same as you, I was always really good at dialogue. And as a result, my books don't have like a lot of description. I don't believe in that. I believe in like getting to the point, building tension, and letting the readers fill in a lot of the blanks for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I mean, I totally agree. That's the way I do it. I mean, I had to see it as a film. I think the story has to be told what is happening.
Yeah.
What is the interaction with people that interests me, not so much about what is going on inside. I mean, if you can't see it, it's not there for me, at least. So that's the way I work.
When you're sitting down and writing, are you just visualizing everything as if you were watching it on TV?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Like he's standing over here, she's over here, the door's over there.
Yeah.
There's this much light in the room. It's almost like you're a cinematographer fixing the camera and say, roll, and then what happens?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Also, I found out, that the also for me, it's like a casting process as well, because I have this, I can, when I start, what are you saying? When I start preparing for it, I can find out, this character will be really cool, and I can really look forward to these scenes with this character. And then when I start writing it, sometimes, the character doesn't deliver for me. I mean, it's like...
It totally changes, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, wow, I mean, you're so dull, or, just doesn't come alive, really. So I kind of cut them out, or, it's like, or they get minor parts,
Right.
And
But that's better than forcing it, right? Because when you force it, it reads as very two-dimensional. And you realize, like, okay, this character just is not serving the story that the way I needed it to be. So who else do I have?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And
so when did you write your first book?
On that character as well.
Right. Right.
I can feel a little cheated.
When did you over 4 years you wrote that first book, is what you're saying?
Yeah, the first book. Yeah. Oh, yeah. On and off, because I was working with screenplays, and I also had a job like, I was for the Danish Film Institute. I was like a ghost reader on them. So I was rating other people's stuff, which was really, really helpful, because you can really see the faults in other people's stuff comparing to your own things. I mean, so so that kind of gave me a skill in in the plot thing as well.
And what was the? So then you had to figure out. I'm not sure the differences in the publishing industry in Denmark versus the U.S. But what was the process? Okay, you finish a book and you're like, okay, do I need to get an agent? How do I get this sold?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was more like I was just finding like 4 or 5 publishers, and then we just the big ones, but also the ones that will, where I thought you could have a who made genre books, things like that. So I think, okay, these I would like to be there. So I was sending the script for them, and I was quite fortunate. I think 4 out of 5 wanted to do the they want to publish the book or work with it. So so that was kind of So I think for me that was kind of easy. I have a lot of problems getting into the film industry, but into the publishing, that was that part was quite easy for me.
That's great.
Yeah.
And that's for the US, that's an unusual story, right? Like it's It's terribly difficult to even get an agent, much less a published book in the U.S.
Yeah.
But you're also probably at a time, I'm just trying to think about, kind of when Scandinavian crime fiction really started taking off. Were you kind of there at that first wave?
Well, the thing here is that when it was easy to get into the publishing industry, and I was thinking, because also I could see there was a lot of famous writers writing crime, and I think, wow, I'm going to be a huge success, instantly. And so I really had my hopes up. And then the publisher, they went out, and this week when I got up with my book that was published in, I don't know, 1500 or something like that, another publishing house was coming out with Stieg Larsson's book. Mm-hmm. And Stieg Larsson was huge.
Right.
And it was like everywhere there was like piles of Stieg Larsson's book there. And I couldn't find mine. I was walking around Copenhagen to find my book, and I couldn't find it. So so really devastating. And at that time the book didn't sell anything. So it's just later on it has, as it's become good. But at that point I was just I was really crushed by Stieg Larsson. So yeah.
And and it goes beyond just being disappointed, because if your first book doesn't sell well, sometimes that's it, because the publisher will say like, sorry. And then other publishers that you might target will look at your sales record and see that it's not great. So they won't take you on. Absolutely. So then you have this existential crisis of like, do I change my name? Do I, what do I do? And, and it's tough, because it might not be in my case, it probably wasn't until my third or fourth published book that I started getting some traction. And you have to have a publisher who's willing to stay with you that long.
Yeah.
So what happened with your second book then?
For me, it was more because in Denmark you don't need an agent to get to contact, but it's kind of a good idea if you want to make money and make a living out of your writing. So I could see that, and I think I was so in love with the idea of being a writer. I really didn't want to go back and writing screenplays, because I think I can decide everything here, and I think I could find my voice in the writing. So it became such a huge dream for me to make a living out of becoming a writer. So I found an agent, and I told him what I wanted, and then we tried to find a plan to how to accomplish it. Yeah. And actually, with the next book, we made an auction with the book.
That's great.
Yeah. So he went up, and because it was at that time that the crime, Scandinavian crime, was kind of taking off now. Mm. So, and some of the publishers saw that, others didn't, and they didn't want to come up with that kind of money that we wanted for the script, but others kind of came up with quite a good salary at that point. So
wow.
So that was actually and that agent and I think we did like, was it 4 or 5 books together? I think maybe 5 books together.
Okay.
So yeah.
Wow.
So he kind of we made the fundament for my career.
Wow. I mean, and again, that's kind of unusual, because, a typical process is, even if your agent does everything right and gets it sold, it's kind of out of your hands at that point. And to your point with your first book, it might not sell very well, even though they put a lot behind it because of whatever circumstances. You never know. So the idea of somebody sitting down and cognizantly saying, I am going to become a writer, and that's going to be my full-time job, to me is insane.
Yeah, it is. It is. I can,
because like I preach all the time, like, don't quit your day job, figure out how to write and have a day job.
Exactly.
But at some point, I think there is something about the mindset being so powerful that if you really fully commit to it without a safety net, that kind of almost causes things to happen in a way. But it's a scary step to take.
It is, yeah. For me, I think that I had to do a lot of odd jobs to be in the movie business. Mm-hmm. And then, writing screenplays is quite good. You kind of make a lot of money on it, when you have a job. And so I was saving for that first book. So I could actually manage that. It didn't pay me that much, and so in that part, I had some jobs, but it was more like, I could make the money from the books. I could go on a tour. I could kind of scrap it together, which was great for me because, that was really what I wanted to do. But I was late in life at that point as well. So I think before I got before I got a job where you kind of get the average salary in in Denmark, I was in my my late 30s maybe. Before that I was poor. So I think I've tried both, because now I'm quite well off with the books, and that's great. But also the whole struggle to be there, it's been amazing. It's amazing tour.
You learn a lot from it, for sure. I mean, and it's so much risk, and you have to do it so I do a writing retreat that's coming up actually next week, and it's much less about how to write, because I think there's a million different ways to write. And I think it's wrong for people to say, here's how you write a book, but it's a lot about just the mindset. As so many people think that they can't do it, and then they never do. I mean, how many people have you met when you say you're a writer? They're like, oh, I've always wanted to write a book, but so few actually do, because they have this mindset of it's this unattainable thing that I'll never be able to do, and it's just wrong.
Absolutely.
What was the biggest challenge for you going from writing a screenplay to a novel? What was I know it took you 4 years, but what was really this is really hard to do?
But I think that writing a book is really hard work. I mean, it's really hard to do that, and I thought maybe I had the skills from and I can see I had the skill from writing 10 years. Writing screenplays, but I still was really, really hard to accomplish a book. So it's difficult to say what was the most difficult part, because it's just very, very difficult, and it takes a lot of time. And I think the funny thing is, with this in our days now, with this instant fame that people want from all kind of media, and and the social media, and you can be you can make a lot of money if you have I don't know, 1 million followers or something like that. And it's just so different from if you want to be a writer, because it will take a lot of your time.
And it's so solitary.
It is, it is. I mean, you really and that you really have to like that. I mean, I really enjoy just being myself. Writing, I think it's a privilege for me, but for other. The funny thing is that about that is when we had the corona, and the country was shut down for almost 2 years, and everybody was going insane, sitting home trying to work. I didn't, I was sad for the world and my neighbors and from some of my friends who lost their jobs, but for me it was I was
business as usual.
There was no different. It was just business as usual. And everybody wanted to write books, so the business was good as well. It was It was crazy times.
I think one of the most challenging. So when I started writing in my 30s without any experience, so I had to learn it all. And I think one of the hardest things to do is you get so close to it that you have no idea after a while, especially when you're early on, if it's good or not. Your mind plays tricks on you. I mean, after maybe 6, 7, 8 books, you start to build a confidence of okay, I know what I'm doing. But early on, and that's where I think I don't know if you reached out, if you had a critique group or you had beta readers or somebody giving you, before you just gave it to a publisher, were you getting feedback on what you were writing?
No, because I had, it sounds really arrogant, but no, I had, with 10 years, I was working with other writers, with producers, and when you work in TV, in the television industry as a writer, you're not king. I mean, you're a hired gun. So everybody's telling you what to do or write. And if they think the car should be blue instead of red, they just do it. And for me, it was just, I really just love to sit there with the characters, with my, and trying to develop all this. So I just write the book and I go as far as I can, and then I give it to the editors. And
got it. And do you get a lot of, like, do you have, like, your editorial feedback from your publisher? Is it extensive? Do you have to do a lot of changes, or is it usually pretty straightforward?
I think it's straightforward. Now I just changed publisher and have a new editor, so we have to find a way to work together, and that's it's kind of interesting as well. So we have to find out, what works actually. But for the last 14 books, I think I've been really fortunate about that. That I didn't have any. I think with the first book, I had maybe an editor, and I think there was a lot of flaws in that. I had to learn how to write the books and how to that.
Right.
And then I kind of adapt into that style, and I adapt into the crime genre.
Yeah.
Quite easily, actually.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
And now you're starting to come into the U.S.
Yeah.
So what has that been like, that whole process?
I think it's amazing. I always, it's always a dream, coming to the U.S. And I have some of my colleagues been there, but not with much success, unfortunately. Yeah. I mean, it's because it's such a huge market. But just being there is interesting. For me, it's very interesting because I grew up with American pop culture, and I loved it. And I love the crime scenes. I love the TV show. I love the comics, the films. When I was a kid, we didn't went to the cinema. We went to the drive-in cinema because we knew a guy who had a drive-in cinema.
Wow!
So all my childhood was with this, and I saw all these kind of action movies, things like that. So I've been really brought up. So for me to come to to being published in a country that has had such a huge effect on me is great. I mean, it's a personal satisfaction.
Are you going to tour it all out in the U.S. or no?
I don't think it's planned right now.
Yeah.
Because it's all on like streaming and with the audiobooks, which is kind of interesting because I've been doing a lot of touring in Europe.
Yeah.
And it's kind of exhausting as well. I mean, it's great fun, and I really appreciate traveling and all this, but it's also a lot of work that where I love writing. That's why I am a writer. I love that. The publishing, it's more work. So so, but of course it could be nice to be on a book tour, and of course it could be nice to be in this. And I love to be in the state as well. So that will be really great. And I know I have some favorite tracks that I would like to race when I'm there.
Oh,
so that would be cool.
I live in Colorado, and there's some racing that goes down in Colorado Springs area. Pretty well done, but it's beautiful country up here. Are you, just out of curiosity, are you going to be at Iceland Noir in November? Have you heard of that conference?
No. Yeah, I heard about it. It should be really, really good, but I haven't got an invitation yet. So, unfortunately not.
I'm making the trek. Yeah, I reached out to the organizers. I'm like, can I be a part of this? And they're like, okay. So
okay, cool.
My first trip to Iceland. So I'm excited.
Have you? And you have never been to Iceland?
No, and I've heard the conferences. Neil Gaiman's going to be there, and Dan Brown, and a few others. So it should be really fun.
Yeah, but I mean, you should go to. I mean, there's like this Golden Circle tour where you can you can see everything in one day almost, and it's pretty cool. I mean, there's so much nature to see, and
I'm so.
I went into. Yeah, you can also. I went into a volcano. You can go down in the magma chamber.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a scary experience. It is, because you're walking out, you're getting out in the middle of nowhere. You walk out to this volcano, and it's just a small hill, and you go up there, and then there's like the elevators where the like, what do you call it? The one who's cleaning the windows?
Oh yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah, that kind of arrangement is there.
They lower you down on that, yeah.
And you go down there. So you start getting, you're scared of heights, and then when you go down in this crater, it is really narrow. You get kind of claustrophobic.
Oh yeah, no, thank you. I'm good.
Yeah. So, but it's really I was really amazed being there. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, listen, Michael, we're going to wrap up. Before we do, we're going to do a really quick, brief storytelling.
Okay.
So here's the fun part. So I picked out 3 books. I'm going to have you pick one of them. We're going to pick a random sentence from a random page, and I'll read that sentence, and that'll be the first sentence. And you give me a couple more sentences. I'll do a couple, and it'll be like 2 minutes long. So I got Simon Scarrow's Blackout. Scandinavian. The Girl Who Died. Ragnar Jonasson. And John Connolly's The Nameless Ones. So pick one of those.
I take the last one.
Okay. And give me a page between 1 and 350.
66.
Okay. So I am going to find a sentence that I think might work. Oh man, this is dense writing. Okay. Let's see here. All right. This is going to be very basic.
Yeah.
His mouth tasted sour and his hands were shaking.
Oh.
So then you give me what comes next?
Can I get it again?
Yes. His mouth tasted sour and his hands were shaking.
I think we have something with a grave. He's digging a grave.
Okay. So then I'll go with that premise. His heart was pounding hard enough that he could almost hear it, and sweat dripped from his brow into the freshly turned dirt. He knew he'd have to go at least 2 feet deeper if he wanted to make sure nobody would find the body.
It's pretty cool. And and what body is it? I mean, could be.
Yeah. So give me an idea what happens next.
Yeah. Next, I think he's. You let him dig. Yeah. I think he should go deeper, and then he stumbles on something in the grave when he's. The shovel is hitting something, and and he finds out it's like another coffin. Somebody has been here before, digging somebody down.
Okay, so the shovel pierced the rotting wood.
Yeah.
Of a coffin that must have been there before he was even born. It slipped right through, and when he pulled away the rotting planks with his fingers, he felt the bones. Something like that.
Oh, something like that, yeah. So he's opening the coffin.
Yeah.
And he sees down there, and he sees these wedding gowns.
That's good. That's creepy.
Yeah. And he see that, and actually there's not only one body, there are 2. There are 2 bodies, and they both have, and it's both females, and they both have the same kind of garment on them.
Interesting. I like that. That's super. So we'll call it there, but like that's
okay.
That's always an interesting juxtaposition of like something like death and something like a wedding gown.
Yeah.
That whole thing is always so gripping because it's unexpected. And I like the idea that maybe he actually knows who's down there. Like he didn't know that they were there, but he knows who they are. Maybe it's his sister or something like that. So
I have something with claustrophobic myself. And so there's all something, somebody is going down in a coffin or some narrow rooms or something like that in my books. I mean,
What was the movie?
That's
the Angel Heart movie where they bury them alive and they... Like there's a scene. So, they have a powder that makes them, shuts down their nervous system. So they think that they're dead. So they bury them and then they wake up. So the scene is completely black and all you do is hear them waking up buried alive in a coffin.
Yeah.
And it's the most horrifying scene, even though you can't see anything. It's one of the most effective pieces of filmmaking I've ever experienced. Yeah. So
that's also the Tarantino, the Kill Bill, the Tarantino.
Oh, right.
Where she's she has to, kick, box her way through this and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't breathe when I saw it. I mean, I hate it. And I love to write about it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the dichotomy of writers is we always write about stuff we can't even stand to watch ourselves.
No, and I'm really a chicken, when I'm writing, reading, when I'm reading somebody else's stuff, they scare me. I'm so easily scared, but when I do it myself, it's so grim. So.
Well, listen, Michael, it was fantastic to talk to you. I hope you got the numbers on your car successfully.
You want to see my race car?
I do. Everyone wants to see your race car.
Yeah.
All right. This is the Lotus. Look at that. Oh, that's like a James Bond car. That's really cool. Wow. Yeah, that is beautiful. Yeah, it's got your name on it and everything.
Yeah, that's my name on it, but it's also the a character's dog called Murphy in English, but in Danish, Krefeld. So he's riding the car as well.
Excellent. Well, Michael, what a pleasure talking to you, and congratulations on all of your success, and congratulations on coming into the U.S. market. So I hope I get to meet you in person someday.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to look for that Iceland tour. So
I'm excellent.
To my publisher now. So.
Excellent. All right, take care. Good luck on the race. All right, bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye.
So that's it. That is my conversation with Michael Katz Krefeld. It was a good one. I like kind of how we did. It wasn't a traditional storytelling where we were actually crafting sentences. It was more talking about what would happen, and I could see the wheels churning in his mind, and mine as well. So that was a good. I think that was a really good storytelling. And I encourage you to find out all about him, and certainly if you're in the U.S., his new book is going to be coming out here. So check that out. But you can find out everything you want to find out about him at michaelkatzkrefeld.dk, Denmark, for those of you who don't realize. So that's it for now. You can go to my website too, carterwilson.com, and check out everything there. And more episodes of Making It Up will be out very soon. In the meantime, thanks for watching and listening. Take care.